Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
All right, TCB listeners, I have an amazing guest today, and that is actually Dr. Seth Barr. Dr. Seth, how you doing?
I am doing well. How are you doing, Dr. Ed?
I'm amazing. I love having original, new conversations and concepts that I get to bring to doctors, and I know that that's my hook for the day. I know that we're going to get to that in a few minutes, but we're going to start with actually, sharing a little bit about like who is Dr. Seth, and then we'll get into why you're on the show today.
Love it.
Why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about you?
So about me, chiropractor, been practicing 7 years in Heartland, Wisconsin. That's just outside of Milwaukee. And, the cool vantage point that the unique thing about me is I grew up in rural Wisconsin. So I grew up milking cows and throwing hay bales, and, my afternoons were spent, playing in the creek down in the pasture. And the cool thing is that taught me a lot of cool lessons growing up in that environment. And we can get into those in just a second. But from that, situation where I grew up in that environment, and it's very rural, small town, everybody knows everybody, you knew your neighbor, and everybody knew everybody for the 20-mile radius, right? And it's cool because then what happened is, as I grew up, I went to college in a little bigger town. And then I went to chiropractic school in Davenport, Iowa, which is the biggest city I'd lived in that point, if you can call it a city. And, now I'm just outside of Milwaukee. And the past 7 years, I've really had this bug to just travel. And so as my practice got growing, I've been able to travel a ton over the last 7 years. And I think now I'm like at probably 10, 15 different countries that I've explored and seen. So it's really cool. I have the whole gamut. My life has been amazing thus far, and I look forward to exploring even more.
That's amazing. Yeah. And so when you say small, like rural, how small is small?
Man, my high school class was it 52 or 62? Okay. And the biggest town, my closest town, had one gas station and one post office and 2 bars. And yeah. And one little convenience store there. And that was a town of 144 people. And we were like 3 miles away from that.
Wow. I mean, I can totally relate because I grew up in a town of 700. So
okay. Yeah.
Actually, it was officially a village,
Yep.
But it gave me a completely different concept growing up. And now that I have kids, even, I want them to experience some of those things that I got to experience. Now that they're in a city, it's a little more challenging. But yeah, I can totally resonate. I'm sure a lot of docs who are listening, and part of the reason why they listen to the Chiropractic Philanthropist is because they may feel kind of isolated and they're in their own small little world. So thank you for sharing that. So one of the things that we love to talk about too are quotes, affirmations, something that's really positive, some words that you would like to drop on doctors today as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So this quote, this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. And a patient actually gave me this card with this quote in it. And it was after her husband was suffering from migraine headaches for 50 plus years, been to how many different neurologists, couldn't figure it out. Had ulcers from taking so many drug medications, finally decided to give chiropractic a try, and his migraines went from a 10 to a 10 down to a 1. And he actually told me, he goes, if it wasn't for you, I was ready to eat a bullet. That's what he said to me. And she gave me this card. She came into my office one day. I wasn't even open. She just came in, saw my vehicle was there, came in, dropped off of this card. And she goes, and in this card was a Theodore Roosevelt quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. And it says, "Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care." And I think that speaks so much to, what we do. But I thought about that, and I wanted to take that for a few minutes here, Dr. Ed. I want to take that a step farther, and I want to go and change that to nobody cares how much you know until they feel how much you care. And I think that's what it's all about, is how do you make that person feel, right? And when you look at that, we say, well, okay, how do you change that? And that comes from one word: your intention. And a quick example is, let's say you have a scalpel or like a knife or a blade. And if that scalpel or knife is in the hands of a wrong person, someone who wants to do ill, they will, because their intent is wrong. Now, you could take that scalpel and you could put it in the hands of a very caring, loving brain surgeon, and they could save someone's life with that. The exact same tool, but different intent. And I think when we look at our practice or anything that we do in our life, we have to ask, what is the intent? Because the intent behind our actions is the underlying driver, and that's what people really feel at the end of the day.
Why did you become a chiropractor? What was the driving force for you?
My driving force, and this actually helped shape my philosophy, was my driving force was actually the wrong intent. I got into it for the wrong reasons. I got into it because, own your own practice and, make your own hours and the cool stuff, right? But I'll turn a long story into a short one. My very first patient in chiropractic school, his name was Ken. Very first patient. He had these thick glasses, if you can imagine, short, shaved, bald head. He was overweight by about probably 75, 100 pounds. And this guy had been everywhere. And he finally found chiropractic and ended up in the Palmer Student Clinic. And he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, can you help me?" He's really quiet and soft spoken. He goes, "Hey, can you help me?" And I look at him, I'm like, I'm going through his chart and it's full of, I'm like, I just look at him. I said, it's kind of serious time. I said, "Look, man, I'm going to be honest with you. You are my very first patient, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to hold your hand throughout this process. I will do everything in my power. And I promise you, I'm going to walk alongside you this whole way." And so it was really cool because this guy he was overweight. He was hooked. At that point, he was taking pain meds galore. Things were stressed financially, couldn't work. His back was terrible. I mean, he was struggling in all aspects of life, which, we know that pain can have a massive influence on all areas of life. And so he was really struggling. Long story short, 3 months go by and you could literally see him start to change. Happy person. Things were better at home. It was really cool to see. Fast forward to like a year and a half, graduation comes up, confetti flying all over the place. We're in the gymnasium and all of a sudden I hear my name and I look and it's Ken. I hadn't seen the guy in like a year and a half. He comes up, he gives me a huge hug and we start chatting. And then I kind of look at him, he has some tears in his eyes. And I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And he reaches into his back pocket and he pulls out this crumpled up piece of paper and he goes, "I want you to have this." And I'm like, "Well, what is this?" And he says, "Well, this was a suicide note that I had written. And if it wasn't for chiropractic and everything that you did here," he goes, "I probably wouldn't be here today." And he was that close to the edge. And so that's where my intent shifted. That's where my realization came from, that, this is so much bigger than myself or any one individual. And that's where everything shifted for me. So.
Wow. Was there ever a time though that, like, when you were going through this process, like maybe when you were a student to the time you transitioned into, building your practice, that you had a time of real struggle? You needed to reach out or you needed support, and then, you learned something, you took something from that lesson and you apply it to your life and business today?
Yeah. It would have been right when I graduated chiropractic school. I myself was going through a tough time, a breakup with a long-term relationship. And I had no idea where I was going to end up. And it was a struggle. And I think I was fighting with my family at the time. It was just a tough thing. And I felt like I was on an island. And it was funny. I remember driving around. I knew I wanted to open my own practice out of the gate. I didn't want to work for somebody. And I said, "You know what? I can figure it out." And I remember popping in a Brian Tracy CD into my 2002 Buick LeSabre. And driving around the countryside, town to town, looking at places that I wanted to open up a practice. And I just remember that CD, it resonates just like yesterday. I must have listened to that thing 1,000 times. And in there, the message that came up was that no one's coming to save you. You know, nobody's coming to save you. And if you want to make something happen, you're the only one that's going to make it happen. Okay. And so taking that with my background from farming and growing up on a farm and just hard work, I kind of picked myself up and dusted myself off and just started making it happen. And the funny thing is that the more action that you put out, the more that things happen. You know, it's funny how the lucky people are always the one who take the most action.
Yeah.
You know, it's no coincidence on that.
That's so true, isn't it? That, I mean, the more people who take take more risk are the ones who always, or the more chances are the ones who always seem to be the luckiest.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's anyways, I could go off on a tangent on that, but I won't. That was a great lesson, and thank you. I'm sure a lot of doctors needed to hear that right now, is to take more chances. Just, you know, put more out there, and they'll get more that comes back to them.
You've probably heard of the ChiroKeto.com revolutionary plug-and-play ketogenic lifestyle program. It's the perfect standalone or addition to any office weight loss program. Right now, get $200 off your office sign up with the discount code TCP2019. Go to ChiroKeto.com now and sign up.
Okay, so I want to bring this conversation around to something that's really cool that you're doing right now, because when I heard about this, I was like, oh my God, I did this when I was back, like, you know, this would have been like, I practiced 14 years. Okay. I haven't practiced for about 3 years really. And I was like, but I did this, you know, years ago, and it was incredible because it was part of our marketing pillars. And we lived in a town of like 80,000. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing, because I love this, I love how things are cyclical and come back around, and how this is helping a lot of doctors today.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm working on now that I'm super excited and passionate about is direct mail. Mm-hmm. And opening the door for chiropractors to be able to use direct mail in their office. And is it okay if I give a quick background and kind of how
totally.
Cool. So early on into practice, you know, everybody, you get into practice, and what's the battle cry? Screenings, right? And coming from a small community, doc, I hated screenings. I mean, they're great, they're valuable, don't get me wrong, but I hated doing them, and I forced myself to do them. But so one day, I think I was probably a year and a half into practice, eating my lunch, go get the mail, and I'm going through the mail, and we always sort our mail into two piles, a keep pile and a throw pile. And for whatever reason, there was a postcard from a dentist. And I put this postcard in the keep pile. I'm not even sure why I did it. But so I'm going through the keep pile again a week later, and that postcard comes up. And I thought, I needed a dentist. And then my second thought was, you know, dentist offices and their business model isn't that far off from chiropractic.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, if this is working for a dentist and he sent out this mailer, there's got to be something to this, right? Well, it kind of went in the back burner. I went to do more screenings. And then a couple months later, I got another one of his postcards. And I thought, okay, I got to figure out what's up, right? So that's when I started this whole process. I started looking into it. And I put hundreds of hours into working into this thing. And I started figuring it out. And the funny thing is I made an ad, I wrote copy, I put an image on there, and I'm thinking, I figured it out. And back in that time, before I had this whole system set up, I had to like work with the post office, which if you've ever dealt with the post office, you know, I'd rather watch paint dry. And dealing with them, ordering, taking the postcards, I mean, getting these things shipped. So it's a big ordeal, but I finally did it. I'm so excited. I got my first shipment ready to go out, take it to the post office. And I'm sitting back there and I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be awesome. Like, new patients are going to come rolling in the door. And I don't even know how many I sent out, but it was crickets. I didn't get one new patient from that. And I was so upset. I was sad because I put so much time. I thought this was going to be this huge thing, and it wasn't. And I got really frustrated with it. And I didn't touch it for like 6 months or a year until guess who showed up in my mailbox again? That very same dentist again, like 6 months down the road. And I'm like, if this is working for him, it's gotta be working. Like I'm missing something. So that's actually the point that I really started to figure this thing out, to tweak it, to figure out what I was missing and develop this whole system and procedure. And I'm at a point now where I got this whole thing basically as put together as you can possibly have it, and to be able to roll it out to docs where they can just literally plug in and push play to their stuff. And I mean, it's so dialed in now that you don't have to touch a single postcard ever. And the templates are everything there. So I have it dialed in now, which is really awesome. I'm excited because I can finally release it on a massive scale to chiropractors and let them use it in their practice.
I love this too, because, you know, again, and this is why I was excited about this, is because literally when I sold my home like 3 years ago, I got the postcard, and it was like, it was just, and it was that was the feeling too. It was like, I didn't know who this person was, but it was a realtor, and I don't know why, but I kept it and I put it on the, you know, you put it on the fridge under the magnet, or they send you a magnet, whatever. Like, so it's like, I don't know, there's something about it. There was a picture, the way, and I don't know why I kept it, but it's funny. And then, so I ended up using that realtor. Like, how much, just one client alone did they, you know, and selling my house. And I know how much of a check they got from that. But the other part of this is like, then I'm moving to Victoria, I needed a new dentist, and it was the same thing. So it's interesting that, you know, I'm someone who responds to direct mail. And I know that there's got to be a lot of people who are out there that responds to direct mail. And I'll be honest with you, Doc, I've done direct mail and drop ship stuff in my business, and it was a pillar of my business for a long time in the online space. We all know that direct mail works, but not very many people do it. So let me get this straight. So you actually have it dialed down to a system that if I was a doc who wanted to do direct mail, wanted to put this into play in my community, because there's probably no one else doing it right now. And all I have to do is connect with you. You have a system. I don't have to lick stamps. I don't have to fill out envelopes, because this is the way that we used to have to do it, right? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, save the looking for the stamps. There's no more of that. There's no more stuff in envelopes. The system is so dialed in with today, and it's beautiful because there's never been a better time. The cool thing, as you mentioned, is not a lot of people are doing it, which means you're the first there. Okay. And we all know that the first there gets to reap the rewards because the fruit is ripe. And so, as you mentioned, you don't have to touch a postcard. You can send to 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 homes in your area, and you don't have to touch a single postcard. It's beautiful. Wow. I mean, and there's two reasons I love this. Number one is because it fits within the philosophy of the chiropractic philanthropist, which is, you know, we want to help doctors grow. We want to support them in their business. And we want to give them new opportunities as well. But, you know, here's the reality is we're going to help a lot more people, you know, bring them to the light of chiropractic experience. You know, there's people out there. I mean, there's two examples, you know, that you've given of just, you know, those people who are literally on the verge. Like, I mean, chiropractic, we are saving people's lives. We're literally saving people's lives. So what is this system called? What is the brand, and what is the name of this then?
Yeah, the brand is Direct Mail for Chiropractors. And the system is just that, the ability for chiropractors to do direct mail and implement it in their practice in an easy, simple way.
And if a doc wanted to connect with you, what's the best way that they can do that? How can they learn more?
Yes, you can email me directly, Dr. Seth Barr at gmail.com. You can check out, I created a webinar for docs and chiropractors to watch if you want to learn more about the system, where I actually will walk you through and show you the exact system and process. So you get to see it in real time. And you can go to the website directmailforchiro.com, and it's the number 4. So directmail, the number 4 chiro.com.
And so just when I heard about like what, I'm not going to reveal what the investment is, but when I heard what the investment was, I was like, wow, this is like an introductory type of offer then, right? So eventually the investment for this, because it's so low, and I mean, the return is so high, it's going to be bumping up later on.
It definitely will be bumping up later on. It's funny. I got on a call with one doc who's like, I want to do this. I'm in. And I told him the price of it. And he goes, so that price, I pay that every single time I send out a mailer. And I'm like, no, man, that's just a one-time thing. Like it's yours and you have it. so yeah, it was at that point that I realized, I'm like, wow, this is, the value that is, and I put a lot of hours into this, and the value that is going to be given to the docs is incredible. And all I ask is, going back to the intention, that the intention for this thing is right. You know what I mean? That the intention is to be able to help more people with this, to be able to get a hold and in touch with people that would maybe never see you or know about you otherwise. And there are a lot of those people out there. There are people that are literally our ideal patients that aren't on Facebook, believe it or not, that aren't on Google and the internet and don't check emails, but they desperately need our help. And they're still the ones looking through mail, and they're the ones calling from these ads, and they're the ones that we can help the most. And frankly, they're the ones that have a means to pay for it too, to be honest with you, in our care and stuff. So it works out really well.
Yeah. I love it. All right. So everyone who's listening right now, all docs, basically you can head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. We're going to have a webpage dedicated to our discussion with Dr. Seth Barr. We'll have all the links and the resources as well. So including, the links to the direct mail for chiropractors website, and even Dr. Seth's email there, so you can reach out to him and learn more, and the link for the short webinar, so you can learn more there as well. Doc, one of the things we like to do is take people, put them into the TCP time machine, send them back to a younger version of themselves, and get some best advice. You ready to be put on the time machine?
Let's do it, Doc.
All right, here we go. Okay, so we're going to put you in the time machine, send you back to, you just graduated chiropractic college. Okay, you have all the life experience, all the knowledge that you have today. What would you say to that younger self?
Man, that's a great question. All right. I would say, ask yourself the question, what really matters? And from that standpoint, in any situation, you're going to come up, your mind, your body, your heart's going to give you the correct answer. And I think it can go on a big macro scale. It can be dialed down into little everyday things, because as chiropractors, as docs, we are pulled in a million different directions, right? There's so many little pieces to our race car that seem to always be falling off, and we got to repaint them and fix them up. And sometimes it's easy to lose track of the bigger picture. But if you can always anchor to what really matters, that's going to guide you right 100% of the time.
Beautiful. And if we could ask you, I mean, you've dropped so many resources and so much value today for doctors, but if we could ask you for just one more resource, and that would be something you're listening to, a book you're reading, someone you're following, like if there's any resource that you think doctors should go and seek out right now, what would that be?
Besides you, Dr. Ed, of course.
Well, thank you for that, but yes.
I got to go back to an old school book for all practicing chiropractors. I think it is a staple that if you haven't read it, you need to be reading it. And if you haven't read it within the last 6 months to a year, it's an easy read. But the book by Fred Barge, Are You the Doctor, Doctor? I think that's one of the greatest books of all time. It's an oldie but a goodie, and I think it still applies today more than ever.
Beautiful. All right. So docs, you can actually head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. Like I said, we'll have a webpage dedicated to our discussion with Dr. Seth today. Also, if you're on your mobile, like most people are, you're going to actually go to your show notes, expand those open. You'll find all the links and resources right there. You can connect to Dr. Seth right now. I'm going to tell you to seek them out, do it right now, because if you don't do this right now, if you don't do this direct mail right now, there will be someone in your community that will be doing it, and their face will be on someone else's fridge. So, all right. I want to thank you so much for giving back today and for being on the Chiropractic Philanthropist.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate you.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to the chiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Chiropractic Philanthropist.